So, continuing our deepening, I'm going to give you two foundational understandings. One, all external conflict is a manifestation of some internal conflict. That's how we move into opposition. By a lack of recognition that this is going on within me, thinking it's going on in the outside world, and then we move into things like attempting to control. So the other one that's maybe a repeat, if I don't go within, I go without. Now, the meaning to me, and that comes from conversations with God, and I'm sure other sources, but the meaning for me, if I'm moving toward peace, joy, and freedom, this is all a journey within. Or I like to say an adventure within. So I'm going to walk through the qualities of self-acceptance with that in mind, those two foundational understandings. And I'm not going to elaborate because I did that in a previous video. The number one quality of self-acceptance is that self-accepting people are joyful people. Now, that's real interesting in the language because it doesn't say happy. Remember earlier we talked about the distinction between joy and happiness. Happiness is conditional. It depends on conditions. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just conditional. Joy is a steady state. So self-accepting people are joyful people. When we are not joyful, there's something about ourselves that we're living in errors in perception. In other words, we're living in what's false about us. And then projecting that internal conflict into the world. Self-accepting people relate to others easily. So again, if you're struggling in relationships, there's something about you that you're rejecting. And by the way, all these qualities are who we truly are. So some of which just takes acknowledgement. Self-accepting people are open to being loved and complimented. So are you open and accepting love and compliments from others? If not, once again, look within. There's something about you that is a belief that's not true. It's false. Self-accepting people are empowered to be their, quote, real selves. So you can use the synonym true self. So self-accepting people are empowered to be their true selves. Self-accepting people accept themselves as they are right now. That probably sounds familiar because we talked about the power of accepting what is. And by looking at what is, if we have made a mistake, it calls for forgiveness and or amends. Self-accepting people are able to laugh at themselves often and easily. I don't know if I mentioned this, but there's an extraordinary book about living a life of joy called The Book of Joy, about an encounter between the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu. They had an encounter, I think, for about a week, and the author of the book has really written the book about that encounter. So even though Tutu, I think, was dealing with prostate cancer, and may still is, and Dalai Lama is obviously aging, they're laughing the entire time in the book. Self-accepting people have an ability to recognize and attend to their own needs. So let's talk about needs for a second. There's a wonderful framework called compassionate communication, which revolves around expressing one's needs to the other and listening to the needs of the other. So, highly recommended. Self-accepting people are self-determining people. So they know their direction in life. And by the way, it's often said that it's the journey than not the destination that counts. I think that's in reverse. There is no journey without a destination. So we need to know where we're going in our lives. We'll have future videos that address that. Self-accepting people are in good contact with reality. Now, you can get into a deep philosophical discussion on what's real. So I'll suggest to you right now, the reality you can know is your true self. That's what's real. Also, puts us in good contact with external reality. Self-accepting people are assertive. So, we can be real clear about the distinction between assertiveness and aggressiveness. And aggressiveness is always manipulative and violent, etc. Assertion is quite the opposite. So I can assert who and what I am right now. Okay. That was quick.
Wow, that was quick.
A little quickie.
7 minutes.